Why am I so offended at the idea that there is a God, or at the very least a designer? I'm not offended that the idea exists, or even that people believe it. I have learned that intelligent design is separate and distinct from creationism, the main difference being that the proponents of it don't believe in a young Earth, a 6,000-year-old Earth, which is honestly ridiculous. I won't go into the evidence, but the Earth is clearly older than a few thousand years. Now, what these scientists, and I don't mean to use that word with any sarcasm, because everybody that I saw in these videos seemed to be very knowledgeable about the physical world, but they say that all forms of life are irreducibly complex, like a car engine. If one piece were to be removed, the entire aggregate of parts would be completely useless. And since a car engine couldn't possibly have formed from a random clumping of steel, oil, wire, and all the other components that go into it, life could also not have been formed from a random clumping of proteins and amino acids. Yes, my philosophy does lead me to the conclusion that we are the products of random chance. But what leads me to believe that is exactly that, my philosophy, which is separate and distinct from science. Science describes the processes of life, but it can't answer the question of its true origin. The whole irreducibly complex notion could be seen as evidence by someone who is looking to find the face of God in science. The same way a bunny rabbit or the Eiffel Tower could be seen in a collection of water vapor in the sky. Best case scenario, the intelligent design idea is a hypothesis. But then what experiments could you perform to support or disprove it? If no experiments and observations are possible, it can't move beyond that point of a hypothesis. If we're going to teach one untested hypothesis in science class, why not teach all of them? A prominent bishop during Galileo's time said that the Bible teaches us where the stars come from, but not how they move. This was, of course, when Galileo was kind of still in the church's good graces, but that's beside the point. But these scientists don't claim to identify the deity, but the evidence they have points to a designer. Yes, I'm a hypocrite, but I'm pretty sure all these guys are Christians. As if stopping short of naming a specific designer lends them some kind of scientific objectivity. I'm not even offended by the idea that they are presenting evidence that points to a designer. I'm just skeptical of all the points that I've heard. And their ideas are not supported by enough facts to be taught alongside chemistry, biology, or geology, sciences that are all based on things that we observe, not things that we may or may not perceive based on what we observe. What really offends me is the idea that they're trying to prove the existence of God through science. The entire point of having faith, and the really impressive thing to me, is having faith in God when there is no evidence to support it. If you're going to live your life based on a book of, for all intents and purposes, unknown origin, I could never do that. And if we can ever come up with a test, like if you drop 1 milliliter of solution into 7 milliliters of another type of solution and they turns red, then that proves there's a God. Let's go ahead and teach that, If we can come up with a specific experiment that proves the existence of God, I'm all for having it taught alongside all the other sciences. But all the evidence that I've heard is not evidence, it's people's perception of things we can't observe, which is an extra step that goes beyond science into philosophy. It's understandable that people would perceive an intelligent hand, because everything we've created as the human race came into being because of our intelligence. But at the same time, I think it's overwhelmingly arrogant to assume that the entire universe works the same way that the human world does. And like I said in my last video, God may have created us in His image, but that does not mean He created us in His ability or talent. I'm not offended by the conclusion that these guys are coming to, but I do get angered that they are treating their ideas as facts. And as for being taught in schools, if this idea goes through all the rigors and criticisms that all other scientific facts have to go through, if it can go through all of those things and come out clean on the other side, teach away. Because if the idea truly has merit and is viable, the truth will prove itself over time. So there's nothing to worry about. I am not worried, for one. So that's my position. I don't think it should be taught as a science because it's not a science. It's just an idea based off of things we see. Science is the study of things we can see and observe. So once we get that litmus paper, that when you dip it in a solution of acid, and it says, yes, there is a God on it, then I will have that be taught alongside everything. Maybe I'll invent one of those. Anyway, take it easy.